In particular, I'm thinking about lakefront listings. Like we have a handful of lakes in our market, and it's a huge mistake to bring those properties to the market like in January, February. You want to showcase the lifestyle of those properties, and that requires nice sunny weather, which like in our market starts in like May, June, July.
You've got a unique property. If you've got a property that, is up in an area that gets more snow, if it's up in the mountains, it may not be very smart to list it in January or February because there's going to be tons of snow and it's going to be hard to access.
Welcome to the Growth Drivers Podcast, the show where we break down the leadership frameworks, mindset shifts, and strategies that fuel entrepreneurial success, personal transformation, and business breakthroughs.
I'm Rachael Novak.
And I'm Mike Novak.
Let's dive in and start driving your growth.
All right, today we're talking about timing the market and how most sellers get this completely dead wrong.
That's right. We've as we're into the second, almost the third week of January, there have been a lot of conversations that we've been having with past clients, with new clients, with people that are interested in potentially selling this year. And one of the recurring themes has been, when should we list, right? If you have flexibility, I had a couple this last weekend. Are we listing too soon by trying to list the first week of February? Another client said, should we wait till April or May until we list, right? And that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the truth about this and the timing the market, the way that people understand it and the way that it actually is.
Yeah. And so obviously people listen to our podcast across the whole country, and some of this is going to be relevant to our specific market.
Right.
But what I would encourage you to do is study the trends in your market. And we'll talk about some of those trends that you can go look at, because we've studied data for years to come up with this analysis of what really actually happens in our own market. And that's what you want to do for your buyers and sellers too, is like really understand what are the trends, because the reality is almost every single market has some degree of seasonality to it. And if you think that there's not some strategy that should be applied to that for your sellers, you're definitely leaving some money on the table for them.
Absolutely. That's such a great point. Because I think about, our friends in the Midwest, and especially like the northern part of the middle of the country. They are not selling houses in January and February when they got 8 feet of snow, So definitely, absolutely applicable. Like you said, do your research. Like you said, over the last 9 years, we've seen the cyclical trends every single year in our market. So we know when things are selling for the most. Well, you're seeing appreciation rise more during certain times of year than others. So that's what we really wanted to talk about. So as Mike said, definitely do the research in your own market. But this is really relevant to West Coast, but especially the Pacific Northwest up in Washington State here.
Yeah. And hopefully this gives you some ideas on what to talk to your clients about. But for us, the first one is February is really the new spring. Like everyone in real estate has always talked about the spring selling market, and it's kind of a myth. Like in our market, again, we've looked at a lot of data, and if you look at the peak closed price, the closed average price for our market, it always is May. Like sometimes it's April as well.
Yeah.
And we need to keep in mind this is on closed sales. Like that's the part that most people miss. They're like, well, the peak was in May, so I want to list in May. Well, that's not right, because that actually takes, right now the days on the market average in our market is 40 days, right? So it takes the time to get your home ready to go to the market exposure time, and then at least a 30-day escrow to get it closed. So you're talking like 2.5 months before that closed sale actually happened, that this home came on and was exposed to the market.
Exactly. So you have to work backwards, right? So seeing that peak appreciation time, that peak number is in late April or May, you go a month or 6 weeks prior to that, and you're talking the end of February, you're talking March. That's what we're talking about. So, getting your home on the market in the Pacific Northwest in February, in the beginning of March, that is the new spring. That's exactly when you want it on, and why.
In May of last year and the year before, it was like really obvious that like the market changed in May. Mm-hmm. It was like, wow, like where did all the buyers go?
yeah, it's like the brakes just got
that was the
pumped.
selling season, It was just like, wow, that was a really noticeable pullback on activity. We saw it with showings going down, saw it with inventory going up, longer days on market. It happened in 24, it happened in 25 as well. And it less so in 2020 and 2021 and things like that when the market was really, really strong.
Right.
But in these like slower markets or more normal markets per se, it becomes very important to track these trends.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And but part of this is like the people who have been looking, like the people who want to move early, the people who understand kind of how this works, they are capturing demand before inventory floods the market, right? So buyers coming in, those are the people that have been looking, that probably took a break, and we'll talk about that in a second, and then are coming back into the market. So there's definitely still high demand. I think what a lot of people think, and the misconception for sellers, is that, well, all the buyers want to wait until the flowers are blooming and the property looks its best in May, right? And the reality is that, yes, buyers will like that, but that's not going to sway them to buy a house.
Right.
So,
yeah, and that's a good segue to the second one. That buyers really re-engage after the holidays are over, and it's noticeable. Like we're shooting this video or this podcast January 20th, so we're 20 days into this market and into this month. And what have we seen so far? Well, we've seen a really noticeable increase in buyer activity, right? And some of that's fueled by the rates coming down, but a lot of it is just like the pure seasonality. Like there's this date in people's minds that once you round the new year, the holidays are now over and I still want to buy a house.
Yep, exactly.
And as a seller, you want to capitalize on that thinking and that emotion, right? People get distracted during the holidays. People don't want to buy when there's Thanksgiving and Christmas and holiday parties. They just enjoy themselves and they don't even think about buying a house.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
And if you're a seller and you like listed your home and you're exposed to the market over the holidays, like, some of our strategies have been pulling homes off in like October or early November and then reintroducing them like at the end of January, like that's worked as well, just because it's like the homes typically sell really fast because buyers are back in the market all of a sudden.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, buyers who, like I was kind of mentioning, like buyers who were shopping in the fall and maybe they didn't have a deal to come together. Maybe the right home didn't come on the market for them, even though there was a little bit more inventory. We saw a lot of homes come off the market. Like traditionally speaking, 12/31 is the biggest listing expiration day of the entire year. Right? For whatever reason, people sign listings all spring and through the summer and expire at the end of the year. So we see a huge decrease in inventory immediately on 1/1. And so buyers coming in who have already been in the market, maybe took a break or took a breather during the holidays, they're now returning with their pre-approvals. They're now returning with full intent to find something. There's a lot less tire kicking, a lot less uncertainty in these buyers. They are ready to put in a serious offer. So, these earlier in the year buyers are definitely more decisive. They're more financially prepared. So sellers who are taking advantage of this market and getting their houses on quickly are finding very strong buyers pretty quickly. We've already seen it this year.
Yeah, I had a listing, a new construction build that sat in the market for 5 months last year during a very, very slow market. We pulled it off because in our MLS, if a listing is pulled off for 60 days, it resets the days on market. And then we put it back on last week and it went under contract in 48 hours at full price.
48 hours.
Same house as the market for 5 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it looked like I did some like magic, but all I did was everything else I'd done before. It's just the market had changed.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so it's very real.
Exactly.
Number 3, the third reason you kind of want to think about timing is that competition is very real. And if everyone lists their home in spring, what do you think actually happens?
More competition.
Yeah.
More options.
It for sure does. And we've said this many times that buyers shop by comparison. So as a seller, what do you want? You want to have as little competition as possible. Buyers are going to go look at homes that are similar size, price to yours in the same neighborhood. And if there's 5 or 6 options, they're going to pick the one they like best. And they might even negotiate on a couple of them at the same time to get the best deal. Whereas if there's just one and it's just your house, that's the only option they have.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So as we all know, the more competition, like we saw 2025, we saw a lot of houses on the market. We saw a lot of inventory. We know that more inventory means more competition, which leads to potentially price reductions and longer days on market. So that's why we typically see, June, July, the market slowing down, so to speak, right? And price coming down just a little bit and softening just a little bit during that time. It's not because buyer activity has slowed. It's that they had more options. So houses aren't flying as fast, right? They're not selling as fast.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for agents, this is why like in October, November, you want to be like finalizing your pipeline for listings in the new year.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like you want to have those ready to go if people are planning to list in January, February, and not be like going on those appointments in January, February. You want to like have a really good idea who those people are and be in conversation and dialogue and coaching them along the way so they actually get to the market like in February.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so last year we had a similar situation to this year where, we were working on a cosmetic remodel for some clients that were out of town, and the house was vacant. So we had, full access to be able to get in and do the paint. And we did some appliance swapping and some light fixtures, some mirrors, just some simple cosmetic upgrades that were going to be a really good ROI for this particular property. Well, we finished the project in the second week of December. These sellers were very anxious. They were really wanting to get it on the market. They're sitting there, their holding costs are what they were. They're paying the mortgage, they're paying the utilities, all these things. And I said, hey, do you trust me? Yes, they did. Okay, let's wait until the second week of January or third week of January, and then let's list this house. I understand that you guys have these holding costs, but the cost of waiting will far, far, far benefit you than just the cost of holding it for another couple of weeks. And sure enough, we listed the home the second week of January. We ended up going over list price. They were beyond thrilled, and they trusted me, right? So where we would have probably gone, like, I don't know, 25, 50 in this price range, under list price, but they would have not had those holding costs. Yeah, they incurred another $10,000 of holding costs between the mortgage and everything for that month or two, but we made them way more money. So that's kind of the difference, right? The best time to sell, if you have that option, right? If you're only selling, the best time to sell is before everybody else does. And if everybody else thinks that the time to put the home on the market in your market is April or May, try to get in before that. That's our whole point.
Yeah. Zig when other people zag.
Exactly.
The fourth one, you want to think about uniqueness of properties because this guidance doesn't apply to everyone, right? Like in particular, I'm thinking about lakefront listings. Like we have a handful of lakes in our market, and it's a huge mistake to bring those properties to the market like in January, February. You want to showcase the lifestyle of those properties, and that requires nice sunny weather, which like in our market starts in like May, June, July.
Sometimes April.
Like, if it's a rainy day or something, like it's not going to sell a buyer that this is a really cool house to go jet ski and wakeboard and things like that, Yeah.
I mean, the point is like to think about this in a completely customized way. Right? Like this isn't a one size fits all strategy. This is an overarching strategy for the majority of residential real estate. But if you've got a unique property, if you've got a property that, is up in an area that gets more snow, if it's up in the mountains, it may not be very smart to list it in January or February because there's going to be tons of snow and it's going to be hard to access. If it's a riverfront property, if it's a lakefront property, like Mike said, you're going to want to be able to showcase the lifestyle of that property. So waiting until April or May would be a really good choice for those types of properties that are also going to have kind of a niche buyer market, right? So like the timing of these things, the timing of, a plain residential home versus a lakefront or riverfront home, it's about the psychology. It's about thinking about, okay, what kind of buyer is going to be coming in to potentially purchase or be interested in a property like this? And what is the best way to leverage that timing to appeal to those buyers, right? It's not just the statistics and what sells the most and what month. And so do that. You have to think about the psychology of the timing as well.
Yeah, great point. The fifth one is give yourself time to prepare the right way. And so what I mean by this is like I said earlier, it takes time to bring a listing to the market correctly. It's always a red flag for me when I go on a listing appointment and the seller tells me they want to list it like next week. That's not even remotely possible. Like you could rush it to the market, but your outcome is going to be massively compromised. And usually sellers that say that, the second thing they say is they want to sell it for the most amount of money.
Yep.
These two things don't align. Like
Exactly.
If you want the most amount of money, which everyone does when they go to sell their house for the record, then you need to make sure that the house looks dialed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a process. Like for us, that process starts with going room by room with you and telling you what to do to the home to actually have it ready to go before our team even touches it. And oftentimes that process takes people 2 to 6 weeks to go through and get done. It's a process of referring them contractors, helping them get some work done, maybe it's been deferred, and making sure it's actually going to look great once it's staged and the photos are done and things like that. Buyers are very picky, and if they see dinged up walls, scratched floors, things that have not been maintained, they're going to either just move on from that house or they're going to discount in their mind that house massively more than what it costs to do those repairs.
Exactly.
Like they see bad carpet, that's 10 grand in the back of their head. We know bad carpets usually like $3,000 to $4,000. That's just one example.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first impression that you're never going to get that back, right? It's like think about like to use a metaphor, think about walking into a store like Ross, Dress for Less, right? You go into the store and the store is always a mess. There's always floor or shoes and clothes all over the floor. You're like diving through, things to find the good deal or whatever, and it's just a mess, right? Like there's no good first impression whatsoever. Or you walk into Nordstrom or Neiman Marcus, you walk into a store that is well put together. The mannequins look beautiful. You want that dress that's on the mannequin. It's gorgeous. Like, what does it cost, right? The first impression, you'll pay significantly more for a really nice first impression with a mannequin that's put together as opposed to a shirt that you found on the floor in another store. It's very similar in real estate, right? You don't get a chance to give the buyers a second first impression. You can't get a reset. Once the buyers see it, once they walk through, your agent or you as an agent can't call those buyers or the agent of those buyers and say, well, hold on a second, we fixed that thing, can you come back? That's not going to happen. So it's very important that you give yourself that time to prepare, that you are getting everything very, very dialed in, that you're, making sure that you're walking through with an objective eye. If you are a buyer of that property, I know it's hard, but you are a buyer of that property, what would you see? What would you be looking for? Because buyers walk into properties looking for reasons to discount it, looking for reasons not to buy it. They do not walk in thinking the best and assuming positive intent. Okay, that's just not how the psychology of buyers works.
Yeah, top dollar requires top condition. Just remember that in the back of your head as you're thinking about this. As an agent, as a seller, those two things match up. Top dollar and mediocre condition do not match up. They just don't. So I showed a house a few months ago, and this like really hit home for me on this point we're making right now. It was really hard to show the home, first of all. Like there was a gate in front of the house, which was hard to open. So agents, don't do that if you're listing a house. Like make it easy to show the home. And then the stairs walking up to them were, I realize I'm heavy, but they were like sagging as I was walking up. Like I felt like the stairs were going to actually give out. And then we went into the home and there was 6 different kinds of hardwood flooring, all mismatched. 6. Right?
6 different kinds of flooring. Oh my gosh.
And then they had taken, get this, the backsplash in the kitchen was plastic. They had glued plastic tile-looking facade onto the drywall. Like this was their idea of presenting the property.
They literally just thought that like people wouldn't notice.
Yeah, they thought it would sell no matter what. And
gosh.
It didn't sell. Like it was on the market for 250 days and then it got canceled, and if it would have sold, it would have sold for way less than they were hoping it would because of all these obvious flaws that were in the property, So anyways, enough storytelling time.
Yeah.
Number 6, get a value range early on in the process. Like when we go on a listing appointment, our goal in that listing appointment is not to pinpoint the list price of that house. We give people kind of a floor and a ceiling, but ultimately we want to see what they actually do and how the market changes between now and when we go live to confirm that price. So we establish that range. We make sure that we're both comfortable with that. Both the seller is good with it, and we also are good with it. Like we actually believe this is a price range that the home will sell for. We're not just going to take this listing or buy this listing and then discount it later. We have to believe in the price or we're not going to move forward with it. And then we see how much work they actually put into the home, because sometimes sellers overpromise and underdeliver on what they're actually going to do to the house. And it doesn't look like what you guys have talked about when you actually get the home. That's a big problem, right? And now we have to have another conversation about condition and price, right? But the markets are dynamic. And if you're going to list a home in 2 months from now, you have no clue what the market's going to be doing. There could be new closed comps that establish a higher price for you. There could also be a lot more competition that establishes a lower price for you, but you don't know. And so you have to firm up that price a day or two before you go live to the market. We do a whole nother market analysis right before we go live. Same thing we did at the listing appointment. Hop back on the phone, look at the listing photos together, and really decide at that point, this is the price.
Absolutely. To your point, like kind of creating a floor and a ceiling of pricing. I like to tell my sellers, like, we are going to run all of our numbers based on the most conservative number that we both are comfortable with. Because if the numbers work at this conservative number, obviously I'm paid on a percentage of a percentage that you're paying my brokerage. So I'm going to want your number as high as possible. We have a vested interest in making sure that number is as big and as high as possible to get you your money out. But if the bottom number, right, if that conservative number does not work for the seller, if they don't like it or whatever, right, and this is just a work testing out the market listing, be very wary as an agent on taking that listing, because you're going to be putting time into it, money into it. And if the numbers that you're going over the sellers do not agree with or cannot handle, then you probably shouldn't have taken that listing. You probably shouldn't take the listing at all. So, and Mike said, as the market shifts, right? I've multiple times I've had this happen where, we have a floor, we have a ceiling price. Of course, the seller is hoping for the ceiling price. Obviously, so are we. We want the most amount possible. But as we're going through projects or as they're finishing up little things that need to be done to the house, the market is shifting, the market is adjusting. And by the time we get to listing, we are at that floor price. That happens. It's the nature of the market, and it's your job as the agent to be setting those expectations, make sure that they understand all along the way, right? We're touching base with them every week, every other week, making sure they know what's going on in the market, sending them new comps, making sure they see new homes going on the market, seeing homes, what they're selling for. That's part of our job throughout that pre-listing process.
Right. And, real estate agents are fiduciaries, which means you have a financial responsibility to be honest with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
And that means being upfront about pricing too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being brutally honest and challenging people's thinking and not just being a yes man that says, hey, sure, we'll try that price, even though the seller just made the price up, right?
Exactly.
That's not going to get them the result they want. It's not going to help them achieve the goal of getting their home sold. It's going to result in frustration and ultimately probably not working together with you a long term in pulling the listing because it didn't actually get sold.
Exactly. I had a fantastic meeting yesterday with two very, very conscientious homeowners. And they told me multiple times, Rachael, if we do decide to work with you, I want you to give it to us straight. And I was like, I literally laughed. I was like, I can promise you, I will always give it to you straight, almost too bluntly. We all laughed, but that's how you have to be, right? To Mike's point, as a fiduciary, I'm responsible for what the expectations I'm setting when it comes to the price that they can expect from the market, right? It's not my role. It's not my responsibility what the house ultimately sells for. That's the market's decision, but how I set the expectations is my job. So being honest, being very, very, very clear with them about what they can and probably cannot get out of the home is important. Going in as an agent with the strategy of, well, we'll just get it on the market and then I'll talk them down. I'll talk them into price adjustments is a terrible strategy. And you're not doing them favors.
I think it's actually unethical.
It is unethical. I totally agree.
Yeah. And I know that some agents, that's their strategy, and I just cannot disagree with that more.
Yep.
So
you're not doing
if
anybody
you're an agent
favors.
doing that, I
You probably don't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, please unfollow our podcast. I don't like you. Okay, so there's 6-7 reasons on how you should time the market if you're going to time the market. Sometimes I think it's important to note that the timing sometimes is more important on that person's needs than the price they get for the home, meaning they may have a need for a time of year that supersedes the goal of price.
Yeah.
And so you need to go into those listing appointments open-minded and hearing what the person is saying on what their goals are, and then customize the game plan for them. This is a very customized business. This is not a one-size-fits-all.
Yes.
We have a formula for our marketing and for our listing process once we decide to move forward, but the planning to get to that point and the timing is totally unique to the client, and it has to be.
Absolutely has to be. That's such a great point. And I think that also circles back to, the honesty that you have to have in regards to pricing, the honesty you have to have in regards to how we're pricing homes. We've done a podcast on that a couple months ago, right? How we're looking at active competition, how we're looking at, what's actively happening in the market right now, not what happened 6 months ago, not even what happened 3 months ago in some markets. It's irrelevant. It's what's happening right now in the market. How does that play into your specific timing, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? And how can we then achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve, whether that's timing, whether that's price, whatever that looks like. So, some sellers that we work with are like, when do I'm flexible. It's an investment property. We can list it when we can get the most out of it. Great. That's when we're shooting for a timing strategy, right? For this in our market, February, March. If they're like, hey, the lease for my tenants isn't up till June and there's no way that I can break it, legally. Okay, great. We're listing that and then we'll sell it for as much as we possibly can as soon as it becomes available and we can sell it, right? So it just is totally customized, as Mike said. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There you go. So there's the truth about timing the market.
All right. Happy spring selling season.
Yeah. Happy early spring, guys.
We'll see you guys next week.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Growth Drivers.
If you found value in this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with a fellow entrepreneur.
For more insights, tools, and resources, visit us at thewarrioragent.com.
Keep pushing forward, keep leading with purpose, and we'll see you next time.